The millionaire's deaf son asked for help every day until the new maid understood the sign. Morning draped San Francisco in a silver mist. Sunlight slid through the trees and shimmered off the wide glass walls of a quiet glass mansion perched above Pacific Heights. The iron gate opened with a soft beep, and Emma Collins paused at the stone path. She took a deep breath, fingers tightening around the worn canvas straps of her old bag as if clinging to the last bit of courage she had left. The first day of work, and maybe the most important job she'd ever had. Her pale blue uniform was neatly pressed, though the collar sat a little crooked. Emma fixed it, glancing over her shoulder like someone caught doing something wrong. She had cleaned dozens of houses before, but this one felt different. Every stone, every trimmed hedge exuded a strange order, a kind of quiet that money buys. Wealth had its own scent, oak wood, French perfume, and the heavy silence that makes people feel small. Just as she reached for the doorbell, the door opened. A tall man stood there, gray suit perfectly fitted, silver hair at his temples, eyes that measured distance with precision. "You're Emma Collins?" His voice was calm, not cold, not kind. "Yes, Mr. Grant." "Start with the living room. Margaret will show you the supplies. I have a meeting now." Before she could reply, he was already walking away, phone to his ear. "Send the contract before 10. I don't want another delay." Emma bowed slightly. The door clicked shut behind him, leaving a silence so sharp it rang in her ears. She stepped inside, and for a moment it felt like stepping into another world. One too clean, too bright, too perfect to be lived in. Ivory sofas, a soft cream rug, windows so tall they caught the entire garden's reflection. Light danced across an abstract painting on the far wall, turning the room into something between a gallery and a dream. Emma set her bag down, opened her cleaning kit, then froze. A small sound broke the silence. A muffled sob. She turned. In the corner of the sofa sat a boy, knees drawn to his chest, shoulders trembling. About 6 years old. Messy blonde hair, flushed face wet with tears. He pressed one hand against his right ear, while the other flicked through the air in frantic, repeated motions. Desperate, intentional. Emma stopped breathing. "Hey there. Are you okay?" she whispered, stepping closer. The boy didn't answer. His movements only grew faster, sharper, and in that blur of gestures, Emma recognized something buried deep in memory. Her cousin used to move her hands like that, years ago. Her pulse raced. The boy was trying to speak in a language no one here understood. She looked around. No footsteps, no voices. Just him, the light, and the silence. Emma knelt down, reaching out carefully. "It's okay," she said softly. "I'm here." The boy looked up, his deep blue eyes filled with fear and hope. In that cold, gleaming house, surrounded by silence worth millions, Emma Collins didn't yet know. She had just heard the loudest cry for help of her entire life. The voice sliced through the quiet like a knife. "Ethan, what are you doing here again?" Emma flinched, nearly dropping the rag in her hand. A woman appeared in the doorway, late 30s, her dark hair pulled into a bun so tight it stretched her face into something sharp and severe. Her gray uniform was pressed to perfection, shoes polished to a mirror shine. Everything about her looked measured, precise, and cold. She carried a basket of toys and dropped it on the floor with a hard thud that echoed through the elegant room. Her first look wasn't at the child, it was at Emma, assessing, annoyed, as if the newcomer had already disrupted the delicate balance of the house. "You must be the new cleaner," the woman said flatly. "I'm Margaret Hale, house manager, and the one responsible for Ethan." Emma straightened and offered a polite nod. "Yes, ma'am. I just thought he didn't look well." Margaret let out a short, humorless laugh. "He's always like this in the mornings. Ethan loves the drama. Don't fall for it or you'll never get anything done." The way she said Ethan, detached, dismissive, made something tighten in Emma's chest. She turned her eyes toward the boy. He sat still, shoulders trembling, tiny fingers gripping the edge of the sofa, lips quivering but no sound escaping. "But," Emma hesitated. "He's holding his ear. Maybe he's—" "That's enough." Margaret's tone was ice. "The doctor already checked him last week. He's fine. What he needs is discipline, not sympathy." Silence thickened in the room. Emma bent down, pretending to wipe the table, but her gaze drifted back to the boy. He was moving his hands again, fast, frantic gestures, disconnected yet full of meaning. A closed fist pressed to the chest, then drawn down slowly. Emma froze. Pain. Her cousin used to sign it the exact same way. "He's saying his ear hurts," she whispered, before realizing the words had left her mouth. Margaret turned sharply. "Excuse me?" "He's signing," Emma said, voice trembling but firm. "I think he said his ear hurts." For a second, Margaret just stared, then smirked, the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, really? You speak sign language now?" "Just a little," Emma said softly. "My cousin—" "No need for details," Margaret interrupted, stepping closer. Her voice lowered, but cut deeper. "What he needs isn't more of that hand-flapping nonsense. He needs to learn how to behave." The words landed heavy, sinking into the silence like stones in water. Emma stood still, throat tight, unable to respond. She looked at Ethan. The boy's eyes found hers, wide, desperate, begging to be seen. In that look, something cracked inside her. He didn't need a voice. He already had one. He just needed someone willing to listen. And in that instant, Emma knew. If she turned away now, no one ever would. When the living room door closed behind Margaret, the house fell silent again. Emma stood there for a moment, staring at the spot where the boy had been. The way Ethan had looked at her lingered in her mind, a quiet, desperate plea that had found a place deep inside her chest. For the rest of her shift, she worked mechanically, wiping, dusting, polishing, but her thoughts drifted back to that trembling child and the small hands trying to speak through silence. By the time she stepped outside, night had settled over San Francisco. The city glowed with 1,000 lights, but to Emma, everything felt dim and heavy. She took the last bus toward the east side, sitting by the window, watching streetlights streak past like flashes of something she couldn't quite hold on to. Her apartment was tiny. One bed, one old table, a taped-up window. She changed clothes, poured boiling water into a cup of instant noodles, but appetite never came. Margaret's voice echoed in her head. "He doesn't need your pity." Emma unlocked her phone and typed, "Ear pain in deaf children," then, "How to know if a deaf child is sick." The search results filled the screen, medical articles, photos, testimonies. One sentence made her heart twist. "Many deaf children are mistaken for being defiant when they are simply in pain and cannot express it." Defiant? No. That boy was pleading for help. Curling up on the bed, Emma scrolled again, this time searching. ASL Basics for Beginners. Tutorials popped up, hands moving slowly on the screen, graceful and deliberate, like a language built from empathy. She followed along, clumsy but focused. Hello, pain, help. The simple words felt like a bridge forming between two worlds. Every motion of her fingers was a promise. Outside, the wind howled between old apartment walls. The clock struck 3. Emma was still there, practicing in the glow of her phone, hands trembling, eyes bright with purpose. She knew she would return to that house tomorrow, and this time she would listen not with her ears, but with her heart. The next morning, San Francisco was wrapped in a pale rose dawn. Emma stepped off the bus, hands cold even though the sun was already rising. She gripped the strap of her bag tighter, her mind looping a single thought. I have to help that boy. The stone path leading to the mansion was as quiet as yesterday, the trees casting long shadows across the drive. But to Emma, everything felt different. Her heart thudded as the iron gate opened with its soft mechanical hum. Oliver Grant was just stepping out the front door, phone pressed to his ear. No, I'll be there by 9. Send the file to my office. When he noticed Emma, he gave a curt nod, polite, detached, and walked away without another word. She watched him go, then turned toward the house, exhaling softly. Inside, the place gleamed as always, spotless, beautiful, cold. Margaret was nowhere to be seen, maybe upstairs. Emma opened the tall windows, letting morning light flood the living room. She arranged her cleaning supplies, but couldn't shake the restlessness coiled inside her. Then, soft footsteps on the hardwood floor. Ethan stood in the doorway, small and pale, still in his dinosaur pajamas, clutching a tiny toy car. His eyes were swollen from crying, but when they met hers, something flickered. Hesitation, maybe hope. Emma froze. For a heartbeat, neither of them moved. Then she took a breath, her mind replaying the gesture she had practiced until dawn. Slowly, nervously, she raised her hands and signed. Are you okay? Ethan's eyes widened. He went still, utterly still. The silence between them grew heavy, electric. Then suddenly, his face changed. A spark of life, a kind of disbelief turned into joy. He dropped the toy and ran closer, signing fast, too fast for Emma to follow. Slow down, sweetheart. Please, she whispered, smiling, trying to keep up. Then she signed the few words she remembered. Calm. I understand. Help. He blinked, took a deep breath, then slowed down. His tiny hand pointed to his right ear, his face twisting in pain. Then he pointed toward the staircase, toward Margaret's room, and shook his head hard. A chill ran through Emma's spine. She understood. Pain, fear. She knelt down, voice soft. Can I take a look? He hesitated, glanced toward the hallway as if afraid she might appear, then gave a quick nod. Emma reached into her bag, pulled out the small magnifying glass she used for delicate cleaning, and gently brushed his hair aside. She tilted his head, angling the light toward his ear. And her breath caught. There was something inside, something small, metallic, catching the light, something that didn't belong there. Ethan whimpered, shrinking away. Emma stepped back, heart pounding. Oh my God, she whispered. Then the sound of footsteps, heavy, deliberate, filled the hallway. A deep, familiar voice followed, startled and sharp. What's going on here? Emma turned. Oliver Grant stood in the doorway, eyes darting between her and his son, confusion, fear, and disbelief written across his face. The air in the room froze. Emma stood still, her heart hammering as Oliver's gaze cut through her like a blade. Sunlight streamed through the wide glass windows, scattering across the floor in pale ribbons, yet none of it could warm the tension between them. Ethan clung to the hem of her shirt, trembling like a leaf in the wind. What are you doing with my son? Oliver's voice was low, controlled, but the anger underneath vibrated in every word. Emma took a deep breath. Mr. Grant, please listen. I'm not hurting him. I think there's something inside his ear. He frowned, stepping closer, each step a heavy thud against the floor. Inside his ear? Yes, she said quickly, afraid he would cut her off. He signed that it hurts. I used my magnifying glass and there's something metallic in there. It doesn't belong. Before Oliver could respond, the sharp click of heels echoed down the stairs. Margaret appeared, her expression calm but guarded. Is there a problem, sir? Oliver turned to her, his breath tight. Margaret, do you know what's inside my son's ear? For the briefest moment, Margaret froze. Emma caught the flicker of fear before it vanished. "Inside his ear?" she repeated, feigning confusion. "Has he gotten something stuck?" "Don't lie to me." Oliver's voice dropped lower, darker. The fury in his eyes burned like open flame. Ethan flinched, and Emma gently laid a hand on his shoulder, feeling the small body tremble. Margaret sighed, straightening her spine. "Fine," she said quietly. I placed a small device in his ear. A sound amplifier. I read about it on a parent forum for hearing-impaired children. They said that with enough stimulation, the ear might relearn how to process sound. I was trying to help. "Help?" Oliver laughed, a dry, broken sound. "You inserted metal into a 6-year-old's ear without my permission, without medical approval. And you call that help?" Margaret lifted her chin, voice eerily calm. "I live with him every day. I see him cry. I see how lost he is. You're never here. I just wanted to give him a chance to be like other kids." "A chance?" Emma stepped forward, her voice trembling with anger. "He doesn't need to be fixed. He needs to be understood. Do you even realize how he looks at you, terrified and desperate?" Margaret turned sharply toward her, eyes like glass. "You know nothing. I'm the only one who's managed to make him eat, sleep, follow some order. And you're just the help." Oliver lifted a hand, cutting them off. His face had gone pale, his voice hoarse. "That's enough. Margaret, you're fired. Effective immediately." Margaret's lips curled into a bitter smile. "Fired? For what? Caring more about your child than you do? You don't even know what he likes, what he fears. And you," she spat at Emma, "you'll learn soon enough that kindness doesn't pay bills." "Leave my house," Oliver said through clenched teeth. "Now, or I'll call the police." Margaret glanced at him one last time, something sharp and furious flashing in her eyes. Then she dropped the rag onto the floor. The sound was dull, final. "Fine." The door slammed shut, and the echo rang through the house like thunder fading into silence. Ethan shivered, his lips moving soundlessly. Oliver stood motionless, fists clenched, breath unsteady. "God, how could I let this happen in my own home?" Emma stepped closer, her tone calm but firm. "What matters now is Ethan. We need to take him to a doctor. Right now." He looked up, eyes clouded with guilt and fear. Then slowly, something softened. Awareness, maybe even love. He nodded. "You're right." Emma took Ethan's hand gently. The boy looked up, eyes shimmering with tears. And as Oliver knelt and placed a trembling hand on his son's shoulder, Emma saw it, the moment a father truly saw his child for the first time. The car cut through the glowing streets of San Francisco, the city lights reflecting off Oliver's pale face. He drove without a word, both hands gripping the wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. In the back seat, Ethan leaned against Emma, his head resting gently on her shoulder, eyes half closed with exhaustion. The soft sound of his breathing mingled with the faint drizzle against the window, a somber rhythm, strangely peaceful. When they stopped in front of the pediatric clinic, Emma turned to him. "Mr. Grant, I'll come in with you. He looks scared." Oliver gave a short nod, his voice rough. "Thank you." Inside, the doctor bent over to examine Ethan's ear, his expression tightening. "You're lucky you brought him in early," he said. "It's a mild infection now, but a few more days and it could have been much worse." He placed a tiny metallic piece onto a tray, small, circular, gleaming under the light. Emma held her breath. Oliver stared at it, his face drained of all color. "We'll start antibiotics and see him again in 3 days," the doctor continued. "Plenty of rest, and no touching that ear for at least a week." As they left the room, Oliver followed Emma down the sterile corridor. The fluorescent lights caught the sheen of his eyes. Halfway down the hall, he stopped, bracing one hand against the wall, his breath trembling. "I can't believe it. I let that happen." Emma turned toward him. The composed, distant man from the mansion was gone. What stood before her now was a father crushed under the weight of his own absence. "You couldn't have known," she said softly. "What matters is that you're here now." He shook his head, a bitter smile curling on his lips. "You don't get it. I thought I was doing everything right, running the company, building a future for him. But him?" His voice cracked. "I didn't even know what his pain felt like." Emma stepped closer, resting a hand on his shoulder. "Maybe no one ever taught you how to listen," she said, calm and steady. "But it's something you can learn, if you want to." Oliver looked at her then, his tired eyes catching a flicker of light. Behind them, Ethan reached out and took Emma's hand, looking up at his father. The reflection of the hallway lights shimmered in the boy's blue eyes, and for the first time, Oliver saw it, a whole world he had forgotten to notice. He crouched down slowly, uncertain, and touched his son's cheek. Ethan froze for a second, then placed his small hand over his father's and squeezed. The silence between them broke, not with words, but with understanding. Outside, the rain had stopped. Droplets on the glass glowed like scattered stars in the city light. As they stepped out of the clinic, Oliver whispered, "Ms. Collins, thank you. Without you, I never would have known." Emma smiled, soft and warm. "I just did what anyone should do. I listened." And as they walked toward the car, the faint sound of Ethan's small footsteps beside them, Oliver Grant understood that life had just handed him something far greater than forgiveness, a second chance to be the father his son had been waiting for. 2 days later, the city was wrapped in a thin veil of fog. Soft morning light spilled through the tall glass windows of the mansion, catching on the polished wooden floors. Emma was wiping down the dining table when she heard footsteps. When she looked up, Oliver Grant stood in the doorway, holding a notebook and a box of colored pens. "Can you help me?" he asked, his voice rough but quiet. Emma blinked, surprised. "With what?" He came closer, placed the notebook on the table. "I want to learn," he said, hesitating for a moment before meeting her eyes. "Sign language. I want to talk to my son." For a second, Emma didn't speak. The man standing before her, always poised, composed, untouchable, now looked almost uncertain. Her voice softened. "Of course." From that morning on, everything in the house began to change. They sat side by side at the dining table, blank paper, pens, and warm sunlight spilling across their hands. Emma taught him the basics. "Hello." "Thank you." "I love you." Oliver followed, slow and careful, clumsy but determined. Each time he got it wrong, Emma laughed softly, adjusting his fingers. "Not like that," she said, gently guiding his wrist. "This is I love you." "It's harder than I thought," he admitted, smiling sheepishly. "It's like any language," Emma said. "It's not just in the hands, it's in the heart." Their first lesson lasted over an hour. When Ethan appeared at the top of the stairs, he paused, watching them from a distance. Then he walked closer. Oliver froze, his hands still midair. "Hey, buddy," he said quietly, then signed awkwardly, just as Emma had shown him. "Hi, you okay?" Ethan's eyes widened. For a heartbeat, the whole room went still. Then the boy stepped forward and replied with small, deliberate movements, "I'm okay." A smile broke across Oliver's face, genuine, unguarded, soft. Emma watched them, her chest tightening. It was as if she was witnessing something fragile and miraculous take root right before her eyes. Over the following days, Oliver rose early every morning, sitting at the kitchen table with Emma, practicing each sign until it became muscle memory. He took notes, filmed himself, and sometimes repeated a single gesture dozens of times. "I've given speeches to hundreds of people without stuttering," he said once, laughing, "but when my son frowns because I signed something wrong, I feel like a student again." "Because this time," Emma smiled, "you're speaking with your heart." At first, Ethan only watched from afar, his blue eyes wide with wonder. But by the third day, he began to join them, correcting his father's hand shapes, laughing silently whenever Oliver mixed up sorry with hungry. The laughter, though soundless, filled the house like music. The mansion, once a cold echo chamber, began to breathe. Ethan started sticking colorful post-it notes around the rooms, each with a word and a doodle of its sign: milk, sleep, love, movie. Oliver passed by them every day, brushing his fingertips across the drawings, repeating the words softly, as if committing them to memory. One evening, as Emma was packing up her notebook, Oliver stopped her. "You know," he said slowly, glancing toward the staircase where Ethan sat sketching, "I used to think I had to make him hear me, at any cost. But today, for the first time, I realized I just need to hear him." Emma smiled, saying nothing. The golden light from the chandelier washed over them, warm and still. From the corner of the room, Ethan looked up from his drawing, his lips moving silently. But Emma understood. "Thank you." She signed back, "You're welcome." And in that small moment, the house exhaled. It wasn't voices that filled the space anymore, but understanding, not noise, connection. For the first time since Ethan's mother had died, the mansion finally sounded alive. Rain fell hard that night. Heavy drops drummed against the glass roof, breaking into a low, endless hum that filled the house. Emma woke up in the middle of a half-dream as her phone began to ring. On the other end, Oliver's voice was barely more than a whisper. "Emma, it's me. It's Oliver." His voice cracked under the sound of rain. "Ethan, he's burning up. I can't bring the fever down." Her heart jumped. "Stay calm. Did you call the doctor?" "Yes, they said we need to get him to the hospital right now. I can't." His voice broke, trembling like a man trying not to drown. "Keep the line open. I'm coming." Emma grabbed her coat and ran into the storm. The rain hit her face in cold slaps, wind biting against her skin. The streets were nearly empty, lights stretching like golden scars across the wet asphalt. In her mind, all she could see was Ethan's small hands signing love, his silent laughter under the morning sun. When she reached the mansion, the ambulance lights painted the driveway in red and blue. Oliver stood at the door, holding Ethan tightly against his chest. The boy's face was flushed, his lips pale. "He's at 104, Oliver said hoarsely. "They think it's a complication from the infection." God, if I'd waited any longer. "He'll be okay," Emma said, though her voice shook as much as his. The hospital felt like chaos wrapped in light, nurses running, intercoms blaring, the white corridors echoing with urgency. Emma and Oliver sat outside the emergency room, side by side in silence. Every minute felt like an hour. Rainwater still clung to Oliver's hair. His eyes were hollow, fixed on the closed door. "I promised I'd protect him," he whispered, "and I couldn't even do that." Emma wanted to say something, but found no words that could hold enough weight. She simply rested her hand on his shoulder. "You're here, that's what matters." The door opened with a soft creak. The doctor pulled off his mask. "Your son's infection came back," he said. "We've stabilized his fever and started antibiotics. He's strong. He'll be fine." Oliver bent forward, hands covering his face, a shuddering breath escaping him. Part relief, part prayer. Emma closed her eyes, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. When they were allowed into the room, Ethan was asleep. His cheeks were still flushed, but his breathing was steady. The soft hospital light touched his face, glinting on the dried streaks of tears. Oliver sat beside him, brushing the boy's hair back with trembling fingers. "My son," he whispered. "I'm so sorry." Emma stood quietly behind him, watching. The man who once hid behind walls of steel now looked fragile, raw, human. And in that moment, she realized it wasn't just Ethan who was healing. It was Oliver, too. He looked up at her, eyes glistening. "You were right, Emma. I don't need him to hear me. I just need to hear him. And I almost learned too late." She smiled softly, resting a hand on his shoulder. "It's never too late, Oliver. Not as long as you're still here." Outside, the rain had slowed to a gentle drizzle. The sky hung heavy with clouds drifting across the city lights. Water dripped rhythmically from the balcony rail, the quiet heartbeat of a storm that had finally passed. And inside that room, beneath the steady pulse of a child's heart monitor, hope returned. Fragile, steady, alive. 3 months after that stormy night at the hospital, the mansion on Pacific Heights was no longer the same. Morning sunlight poured through the tall windows, falling over colorful paper notes taped across the walls. Each one bore a sign: milk, sleep, thank you, love. In the corner of the living room stood a whiteboard filled with ASL symbols, drawn in bright markers. Beside it, Ethan's easel overflowed with colors, as if he were repainting the world itself. The house, once silent and cold, now breathed with laughter, not the kind that made sound, but the kind that shimmered in gestures, eyes, and light. Emma walked down the hall, pausing at the sight before her. Oliver sitting at the dining table, signing slowly to his son. "Homework," he formed carefully, each motion deliberate. Ethan grinned and signed back twice as fast. "Someone's getting good at this," Emma teased, holding her cup of tea. Oliver looked up, smiling. "Do you have any idea what it's like to get corrected by your own kid every day?" "Probably. Frustrating but wonderful." "Exactly." He chuckled, then turned to Ethan and repeated the sign for thank you, this time perfectly. Ethan gave him a thumbs up and signed good job, making all three of them laugh. Days passed in the quiet rhythm of this newfound harmony. Each morning, Emma and Oliver learned new words together. Each night, they watched movies with Ethan and signed about them afterward. Sometimes Emma caught Oliver watching his son in silence, his eyes filled with something she hadn't seen before. Peace and love that didn't need to be spoken. One morning in May, Ethan was invited to give an online presentation for his class, titled, "My Family Hears Me." Emma set up the camera, while Oliver stood behind, as nervous as any proud father could be. On screen, Ethan began with a bright smile. He signed slowly, clearly, his movements confident and expressive. Behind him hung large drawings he had made, a kind-faced woman, Emma, a man leaning over to learn sign language, Oliver, and himself standing between them, arms spread wide in light. Below, in careful handwriting, were the words, "My family hears me." Emma felt tears rise before she could stop them. Oliver didn't speak, his jaw trembled, his eyes glistening. When Ethan finished, he turned to his father, waiting. Oliver inhaled deeply, then raised his hands. For the first time, his fingers moved without hesitation, sure and steady. "I love you." Ethan's face lit up. He ran into his father's arms, silent but radiant, and Oliver held him tight, tears falling freely. Emma looked away for a moment, wiping her eyes, smiling through the blur. Later that afternoon, when the house had grown quiet again, Oliver found her in the garden. The air smelled faintly of jasmine. He held an envelope in one hand. "Ms. Collins," he began, his voice steady but warm, "I don't want you to just work here anymore. I want you to be my family's assistant and interpreter, full salary, triple pay. But more than that," he paused, meeting her eyes, "I want you to keep being our bridge between me, my son, and the world." Emma stood still, looking at the envelope, then at the man before her, no longer the detached executive she once met, but a father who had learned how to love. "Mr. Grant," she said softly, her voice trembling. "I'd be honored." Oliver smiled, a real unguarded smile. "No, Emma, we're the lucky ones." Inside, Ethan ran across the garden, waving his paintbrush, calling to them in bright, joyful signs. Emma watched him, her chest swelling with quiet peace. The sunset bathed them all in gold. When Ethan turned back and signed together, both Emma and Oliver answered with the same gesture. And in that moment, after all the storms and tears, silence no longer meant sorrow. It had become a language of love, the purest kind of understanding. The house that once echoed with emptiness finally had a soul. 6 months after Ethan's presentation, the Grant garden shimmered in sunlight. Afternoon light streamed through the trees, gilding the lavender bushes and the soft grass beneath them. The wind brushed past the chimes on the porch, filling the air with a gentle, melodic hum. Ethan chased a blue butterfly, his small hands reaching upward, his face glowing like he was trying to catch the sky itself. A few feet away, Oliver held a camera, clicking shot after shot, each frame a fragment of peace he never wanted to lose. Emma sat on a wooden chair nearby, an advanced ASL workbook open across her lap. The sunlight caught her brown hair, forming a faint halo around her face. Her fingers moved delicately in rhythm, practicing new words: hope, trust, gratitude. Every motion was graceful, like a silent dance. Ethan turned toward her, signing playfully. "What are you learning?" Emma smiled, replying, "New words." He tilted his head, his hands quick and bright. "Teach me." Oliver laughed, walking over. "Looks like I'm about to fail this class with 2 brilliant teachers." The 3 of them sat together on the grass, their hands weaving through signs, their laughter, though soundless, rippling through the warm air. A butterfly landed briefly on Ethan's shoulder, wings fluttering, then lifted off again, leaving a trail of sunlight behind. Oliver lowered his camera, looking at his son, then at Emma. His gaze lingered, soft and full of gratitude. "I almost lost him," he said quietly, voice rough but steady. "If it weren't for you, I'd never have learned how to be his father." Emma looked up, smiling faintly. "No," she said, signing at the same time. "You didn't lose him. You learned to listen." The words floated in the air, light as the wind, yet they made Oliver bow his head, a smile trembling through his tears. Ethan, not fully understanding the words, but feeling their warmth, walked over and wrapped his arms around both of them. The sunset spilled gold and amber across the garden, painting the 3 of them in light. A father, a woman, a child, sitting together, wordless but full of meaning. Ethan looked up and signed, "I love you." Oliver and Emma responded, perfectly in sync. "I love you too." A breeze swept through, scattering lavender petals like whispers. The camera in Oliver's hand clicked one last time, capturing the moment 3 hands intertwined, 3 hearts beating to the same quiet rhythm of understanding. As night began to fall, the mansion no longer felt like a place of loneliness, but one of connection. In the silence, there was a voice. In the quiet, there was love. And sometimes, the real miracle isn't that a child is healed, but that they all finally learn to truly listen to one another.